All right, yesterday I was doing this YouTube live and somebody asked me a question about, hey, his ferritin level went from 310 up to 380 and he was concerned about it. And I said, I don't think that's something you should really be concerned about, that change. And I'll discuss why I suggested that. And one thing, we see is, people will go to the doctor and they'll get a bunch of labs, or go to a functional doctor and they'll order, 100 labs, and they'll be, oh, this one's slightly high and this one's slightly low, or this one went up a little bit, that one went down a little bit, and we need to do something about it, right? And a lot of people get really anxious about these numbers, right? And the thing I want to impart to you guys is you have to realize that there are various variables that day to day, even lab test to lab test, there's variance in there. There's something like, for instance, in the case of this ferritin going from 310 to 380, well, what's the coefficient of variance? So what does that mean? Well, what is the standard deviation around the mean, or the dispersion of data points around any given lab value? So to explain that concept, let's just say the coefficient of variance is 25%, right? And so to give you an example, which is I've seen used, is let's say somebody says, hey, I'm ordering a pizza. It's going to take 20 minutes. And they tell you the coefficient of variance is 25%. What does that mean? It means it can arrive anywhere between 15 minutes and 25 minutes. That's the built-in slop within the system. And so when we look at something like, well, what's the coefficient of variance for ferritin? Well, it happens to be around 15% for males, 27% for females, which was quite high, I thought. So, with a 310, 15% of that's about close to 50, closer to like 47 or something like that. But so it could be. So 310 could really be as low as, 45 points below or 45 points above. So it could be 355. It could be 275 to 345. And then you got the other end, 380. What's the coefficient of variance around there? 15% either way. So now you've got, roughly 60 low. So it could be as low as 320. It could be high as 440. So you've got those numbers that overlap. Essentially the same number, right? Not to mention, and this is something else that you guys need to understand, there are things like diurnal variability. Depending on the time of the day you take it, it can vary. Now, ferritin doesn't have a great deal of reproducible diurnal variability, but it can vary throughout the day, but not in a predictable pattern like some hormones or some other lab tests. Like we know, like testosterone will peak in the morning. We know like ghrelin will peak in the evening. So again, when these labs are changed by 10, 15%, something like that, a lot of times I'm like, what's the coefficient of variance? How much is the typical difference? Now, some labs are pretty good. Some are like 5%, but they tend to accept up to 20%. It's kind of like, 20% is good enough. Sometimes even 30%. So what I'm saying is don't get too spun up on lab variation, when one tests to the other, just because, there's so much variance in there, and not to mention the daily cycle variance that happens in a lot of these labs. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you guys, give you more understanding. For those out there that are like scrutinizing every, 3% shift in this or that, it's a waste of your time, guys. I'm telling you, okay? Get strong, eat well, get good sleep, get some sunshine, eat some protein, don't be sedentary, and don't get so obsessed about the labs. It's people want to sell you supplements and stupid programs and stuff like that, stupid cleanses and all this bullshit. That's what they prey on. Your ignorance around just basic. And I'm not going to say anyone's stupid about it. I'm just saying most people don't understand this. These labs can have pretty significant variations. So don't get too obsessed with that, guys. All right. Hopefully this helps. Let me know what you think.